Hi, good morning. I come to you from quarantine. I decided to just sort of set up in a different spot. I wanted to sit facing the sunlight. This is an unhaul video. I went through my books and pulled out some books that I feel like I just don't need or want anymore. There's, some various reasons. I thought I'd just go through them really quick. There are 24 books here. Some of them are sort of like series or bound together, one particular series that really takes up a lot of that number. There's so many. I didn't realize there's so many. 24. Wow. I'm just gonna hold them up and tell you why I'm getting rid of them. So I've got Half Bad, Half Wild, and Half Lost by Sally Green. And this is a trilogy. And it was so different from any YA trilogy I've read in a long time. It just has a completely different vibe to it. I enjoyed the books. I did not like the ending though. And even then, a month after reading them, I'd be like, I remember enjoying it, but I don't really feel anything strong towards the characters. I don't remember half of what happened. I took a year between each book. I think it was 2 years before I got to this one because I just didn't care. And so, well, I did enjoy the series. I don't think it was terrible. I just don't really see a need for me to keep it. I cannot imagine a case where I'd want to reread these of my own volition. So they're going to be rehomed. I'd like to mention some of these books I'm just going to be putting out in the lobby of the building that I live in so that hopefully they'll find new homes during all of this corona craziness. And others I'll probably just end up donating. Some I am going to try and sell when things settle out. So the next two books are 0 Hour and Hidden Enemy, which are both novella collections for the I Am Number 4 series by Pittacus Lore. And while I really enjoyed these novellas, I binge read this entire series just before the last book came out, a few years ago I guess now, and I really enjoyed the novellas as well. I remember starting the series and seeing the novellas and being like, I'm not reading those, and then was so invested in the series that I went and read the novellas. But I don't feel the need to collect the rest of the novella bind-ups. I don't know why I'm holding on to these. I still have the series. I think I'd like to reread it again one day, but I don't feel like I need these. I can get, ebooks and audiobooks from my library. I've got I'll Give You the Sun by Janie Nelson. Now, I really love this book, and if I had a nicer edition, I would keep it, but I don't like this edition. I got it super cheap at Book Outlet. It's got a sticker stain that I can't get off. The pages were bent and stuff, and I don't like this cover. It's just got a quote on it, and it's a half page. I liked the original cover. I just really don't like this book, this physical edition, enough to want to keep it. I really wanted to like this book so much. This is a Cat a Witch by Nnedi Okorafor? I'm sorry. I found the writing very juvenile, considering how old they're supposed to be, and I just didn't like the writing. I read the second book, I listened to the audiobook of it, and I just can't bring myself to care about these characters. There's just something about the writing that I don't like. I can't, I thought maybe by audiobook I could stand it, but I can't. I forced myself through this book, and it's too bad because I think it's such a cool concept and I love the world. I just don't like some of the characters. I don't like the writing. This is another case of I don't like this edition. So I have Solitaire by Alice Oseman. I got this again really cheap from Book Outlet, and it's ripped and it's battered and the cover is scratched and scuffed. There's some writing here and I can barely see it because it's so scuffed. And I really prefer the paperback editions. Under the cover it's very nice. I do like all that, but I don't like it enough to want to keep it. There's nothing wrong with the story, I just don't like that edition. So we're taking a break from YA and going to some old school textbooks that I had, and I held on to these kind of for nostalgia because I really liked a lot of the courses I took in university. I greatly enjoyed university. So I have Canadian Literature in English texts, volumes 1 and 2 by Penguin, and I held on to these because I really do like the study of national literature. And I liked studying Canadian literature. I took this course because I had to in order to go to teachers college and have English as a teachable. I didn't end up doing that. And so I ended up dropping a course I really wanted to take to fit this course. So I was very upset at having to take this course. And while I think that other course would have been awesome, I am really glad I took this course because I adored it. I loved my prof, I loved my TA, and I loved the people in my class, and I loved the content and the stuff we were studying and how much it wove with history and stuff. And so I've kind of held on to that, thinking like, oh, one day I'll go and study can lit on my own, and one day I'll and I'm still thinking that, like, I'm like, yeah, I want to do that, but I've been sitting here for almost a month with like nothing to do, and I have not even thought of picking these books up, so it's going to go. Again, following in the train of more school textbooks, I have this really cool, like, heavily pictured book that is about propaganda, like images used in propaganda. Well, I mean, that works. The propaganda that was used to sell the idea of nation and to sell the idea of Canada to the people that live in Canada. This is from a Canadian history course I had to take. Again, one of my favorite courses I had to take, and I was forced to take it. I didn't want to take it. Through university, through my history degree, fascinated with the idea of having to sell patriotism and nationalism and the idea of nation and the identity of your nation to people through propaganda, like national identity formation and how you use history to weave a story and decide your identity based on what history you decide to highlight, what history you decide to, you know, put into the shadows and ignore, and what history, like how you twist it, just through some choice words. And I don't think I need to keep this book to remember how much I like that. Honestly, the last 3 books, it's the same thing. I've got Understanding the Victorians and We Are the Romani, and the history of immigration and racism in Canada, just subjects and stuff I was really, really interested in, but I don't need to keep. I'm not using these books, they're just taking up space. And back to YA. I've got Tell Me Again How a Crush Should Feel by Sarah Farazan, and this book was alright, but it was just okay. And I don't particularly feel strongly about this edition. It's definitely like classic YA kind of cover, and well, it does, you know, kind of pass the flop test. I just have no inclination to read this again. I have no inclination to want to keep this book. I feel nothing really looking at this. Just, it's okay. Labyrinth Lost by Zoraida Cordova. I read it and it was okay. I thought, you know, it was beautiful world building. I just don't feel strongly enough to want to keep it on my shelf. I want to pass it on to someone else that might enjoy it. And I've got None of the Above by I.W. Gregorio. And this book is about a intersex teenager, and she finds out, you know, in her teen years that she's intersex, she didn't know, and is dealing with that and the identity of that. I feel like I've held on to this book just because it's a book about intersex people, and there's not very many stories like that out there. I did find it a little bit clinical. I don't think that the author went out and was insensitive about this. Like, she's a doctor, from what I recall. She actually works with intersex people. It wasn't an amazing story. I've kept it because of, you know, a topic. And I don't feel the need to keep it. You know what? That is part of what I want. I want to focus on the stories of my books, not just the topics, not just, you know, the hit list of, oh, I got through all these books. Look at all the books I've ever read physically demonstrated in my house, in my home. I want it to be about good quality stories. I want every book that is on my shelf to be there for a reason. So whether it's because I think it is a quality story, or because I think, for example, the case of classics, because it has contributed to the stories that we have today, and I think that's important too. And, well, I think certain topics are definitely important. I don't think we should cling to what we have. I think, you know, we should search for more and better. This next book makes me so sad because I wanted to like it. This cover is gorgeous, and they promised dragons. That is The Last Name Sarah by Kristen's, I never did figure out how to pronounce her last name, I'm sorry. This is a beautiful book. I don't want to get rid of it because it's a beautiful book. Like, I didn't like the story that much. And when I got to the sequel, there were no dragons. It was about some girls in a desert, which I thought was an interesting story, but considering I went to the series Promised Dragons, there was very, very little dragons. I was ultimately disappointed with this. I didn't care for the characters. The writing was just okay. The plot was okay. There were not enough dragons. It's so pretty. It has to go. Can't keep the shiny. want to keep the shiny things. Last on my list, definitely an unpopular opinion, is the entire Throne of Glass series, minus Kingdom of Ash. I honestly don't know why I kept buying these books. I bought the first one, and I liked it well enough. So then I went and bought number 2, 3, and 4. So that explains why I have these. It doesn't explain why I got the last two as well. I think that the series is just okay. I think the world building was alright. I liked some of the scenes in the last book. Like the cave scene I thought was rather exceptional. Like that was beautiful. I wish there had been more of stuff like that in the series. But the plot was messy. You can tell she didn't really know where she was going with it. This was a debut book. It's a debut series. I don't mind some messiness, but if that was the series' only fault, that it was just a bit messy, I could have lived with that. I didn't like the turn towards porn in this series. I find it kind of creepy that this author is writing porn for teenagers. And I'm not saying teenagers don't have sex, you know, or that they can't handle that content. I find it creepy that there's an adult writing porn for teenagers. So those are the 24 books I am unhauling.